Hello, friends. Steve Stockton here with you. Welcome to Listener Stories, a chilling series where we delve into the depths of the unknown through spine-tingling tales submitted by you, our listeners. From eerie encounters with the supernatural to inexplicable phenomena that defy all logic. Join us as we navigate the shadows of the human experience and explore the darkest corners of the imagination. Each episode promises to leave you on the edge of your seat, questioning what lurks in the darkness and what secrets lie hidden in the night. So dim the lights, settle in, and prepare yourself for a journey into the realm of the unexplained. A hunter's experience. Thank you for letting me tell my stories. It means a lot. I'm a hunter from Ohio and own a small piece of land. We have everything from skinwalkers to UFOs on this land. It started when I was 8 years old. My dad and uncle were away from the trailer, and I was alone by the fire pit, playing with my flashlight and having a fun time. Then I saw it. It had to be 6 feet tall and very hairy and skinny. It was bipedal and had horns on its head like an 8-point. It leapt on all fours and ran off. The next story, I was 16, and my dad's friend, and myself were on a four-wheeler. When my dad's friend said, "What the hell is that?" It was a small, round orange ball floating at treetop level, moving in a slow circle. When we would get close, it would go out, but when we moved away, it would come back. We watched this for 10 minutes until it floated off. My third story is one I don't tell many people because it still scares me. It was in December. I was 20 at the time, and it was close to dark, and the woods were active all day. There were birds chirping, and I saw plenty of small deer during the day, but I got out of the tree stand, and I remembered it going dead quiet. So I started walking, and it's a mile from my tree to the trailer, but I felt like I was being watched and followed. I started to hear a goat noise. None of my neighbors owned goats, so now I have my gun cocked, and I hear a horrible screech and something heavy running at me. I fired in the direction and ran. I ended up running into my dad, yelling, "Run," and we booked it. The final story I don't tell people, but it's time people know. It was a year after the last story. I'm 21. Now I think this needs some backstory to it. The scary stuff hasn't been this bad ever until over the 2018 summer, where a satanic cult came into my neighbor's farm sacrificing his cows, and the woods feel different. I mean, you don't go there without something. It got to the point where you have to know where everyone is at all times. It was bow season, late September. I got out of my tree stand because I moved fields and because I wanted a new spot. But the tree was exposed so they could see me. I get on the ground and see lots of deer. It was getting dark, and my dad headed back to the trailer early to pack up our gear, but he called me and said, "Hey, head back, it's getting dark." I said, "Okay," and hung up and started walking and got to the end of the field, and I heard my dad's voice, clear as day, say, "Hey, wait for me." And I stopped, but then I remembered he was at the trailer, and I ran. I heard it behind me yelling, "Wait for me, stop running," deeper and darker. I made it back, but I didn't hunt for a while after that. Sincerely, Anonymous. I knew I wasn't alone. I've not yet written these experiences down, but thought it'd be a cool idea to send them your way, because I really enjoy your narration. Feel free to use this any way you see fit. My name is Elizabeth. In May of 2019, I moved into a very fancy loft apartment at a brand new, large, expensive luxury complex in Uptown, Charlotte, North Carolina. Because of the weird things that occurred in that space, I ended up moving out early and having to pay rent at 2 locations, but it was worth it. The activity did not begin immediately. I don't even remember when it started happening. I never felt any weird vibes in that loft until one night, after probably months of nothing strange, when I was sitting on the toilet. It was after 2 a.m. and I had to pee. I fumbled into the bathroom and sat on the toilet. My brain went from half asleep to completely awake when all of a sudden the door to my bedroom slowly closed with a moan and a click. As soon as I heard that click, I knew I was not alone. I never put real effort into contacting whomever was sharing that loft with me because I didn't want to increase the activity as I live alone and deal with this territory daily for work-related cases. Instead, I decided to take the opportunity to see if I could calm my nerves better and handle anything that occurred with a level head, which is generally much easier at work because the issues are not in my home. It mostly worked until the big dude showed up. The most intense thing I saw, literally visually, was an explosion of orbs that danced like a fish in my living room, and a super fast shadow person. The main door to my loft bedroom was a barn door style set of frosted glass doors. I heard something in the kitchen sink crash. That was their favorite way to get my attention, by knocking things into the sink, and looked up. I saw a dark shadow of a child-sized person run past the glass door so quickly it was obviously paranormal. I said hello, asked him to please be quiet, and eventually went to sleep. The most startling thing that happened to me was being woken up from just having fallen asleep by someone blowing cold air fairly aggressively into my face. A pattern of sleep deprivation began forming, and soon I swear they were messing with the fire alarm. Oh my God, that alone is half the reason why I left early. I think the local fire alarm went off at least 50 times. At least. It was a nightmare. The maintenance staff would claim dead batteries or that the alarm went offline or needed to be restarted every time. But after several dead batteries and resets, they began to get spooked as well. Those awful alarms were set off at all hours, and several times the building alarm in my unit went off, but none of the other units did. The coolest things that ever happened were capturing several EVPs accidentally. I actually caught an EVP of my stepmother who passed away in 2015 saying my nickname and her own name. She took the time to identify herself, and that meant a whole lot to me. I've wished more than once that I'd put real effort into capturing more, but I did not want to encourage what was slowly turning into vaguely threatening vibes. One night, I fell asleep on the couch and woke up because I felt someone shake the entire couch, but was so groggy that the event was too hazy to be as scary as it could have been. Another night, I was watching TV on the couch and heard a very large person walk into my hallway and right up to me. I felt every hair on my body alert into vertical position and knew this was a different spirit. Male, large, and possibly drunk because the electrified air around me reeked very strongly of grain alcohol. These apartments were not even finished opening entirely when I first moved in, but that entire complex was loaded with bad juju. After watching a freaking portal open up in the middle of a Hansa tapestry I had hanging from the large wall in front of my bed, and after constantly being woken up by negative feelings, I finally confessed what was happening to my boyfriend. Note, I do not know if it was an actual portal, but a circular or spherical mass of vibrating electricity or something began swirling and flowing slowly at first. Then as my heart rate increased, it spun faster and faster. The air began to smell like how my plasma cleaner smells when I clean water. I kind of felt like I was drowning, or maybe tapping into someone who was drowning, or maybe portals feel like drowning. I did not understand that aspect at all. Currently, my boyfriend and I live together in a totally different place, but he was planning on joining me at that cursed, overpriced uptown luxury apartment. He has pretty impressive ESP, and I do not know what exactly went through his head after I slowly confessed to everything that had been going on. But we found a new place and moved 4 months before my lease was up. It took less than a week. Now, here's the seriously crazy part. While we were moving out of uptown, my boyfriend met the movers to get the larger furniture properly placed and delivered to our new place. When they were in the bedroom breaking down the mattress and box springs, he saw a strange pile of rocks, a pile of ashes, and 3 strange-looking handmade paper or wax candles. two of which had been burned through the whole wick, one of which was unlit. He was so taken aback by the creepiness and strangeness of the scene that he grabbed the rocks and candles and dumped them into the trash. When I asked why, he said it looked like someone had been doing voodoo under my bed, and he instinctively thought to get rid of it. Unfortunately, he threw most of the little altar or whatever it was down the trash chute before the movers spotted it, but he did end up saving the unlit candle, and the pile of ashes was still there when I went to go look. We could not figure out how anyone other than a child managed to get a fairly intricate arrangement of objects under the big bed directly in the middle of the floor, beneath the middle of the bed, because it's a queen-size box bed with only 5 inches of space underneath. Also, the altar was placed about 3.5 feet from the edge of the mattress under the bed. Neither of us could reach that far, and there was not enough space to fit your head or shoulders under far enough to reach the center and arrange an altar with lit candles. We've tried to figure out who could have accessed our very high-security, chip-access-only apartment door, let alone all the locked doors and security measures before that one. If any of you listeners have any ideas about what that stuff under my bed was, we're still scratching our heads over it. I didn't live there or interact with the neighbors or staff there long enough to make friends or enemies, and the only people who can access all those doors are the staff. The management of that uptown apartment was, and remains, absolutely terrible, but the staff never gave me any indication that they were intelligent enough or able to put down their phones and focus long enough to actually learn a complex spiritual topic. And I don't think anyone who worked there would bother doing something like that to risk their jobs during a pandemic. It remains a big WTF, and both my boyfriend and I feel it is related to the activity somehow. But how? North Carolina is one haunted place. Thank you for reading this, and also thank you for the other great stories and narrations. Cheers, Elizabeth. My Humanoid Encounter. I recently watched the video Encounters with Transparent Humanoids on your channel, and it was an eerie reminder of an experience I had about 3 years ago. The fact that someone had seen something similar to what I witnessed raised an eyebrow. I actually put it off to my brain playing tricks on me, perhaps from Matrix of Bush, Shadow and Trees. It did look odd enough to catch my attention for further inspection and watch it for about 5 minutes or so. Here's the story. It was morning, the sun was up in the sky, early fall, a light breeze blowing, moving the sparsely scattered brush in the area. That is one thing that really grabbed me. As I mentioned, I watched it, and the brush moving seemed to have no effect on the position of the apparition. It remained the same except when it appeared to move an arm and slight movement of what would be the head. It looked like a very light outline of a man. You could detect the shadow of eyes and features of the face. It stood there just looking not in my direction, but more of a direction perpendicular to the position it was standing. More or less straight ahead with a slight occasional movement in an opposite direction to me, perhaps about 20 to 25 degrees. I saw about 2/3 of the object from head to a little below the waist. Some light brush covered the rest. I watched it and couldn't believe my eyes, and tried my best to explain it with no logical explanation, as it's my nature to ask questions and rule out all the possible explanations. It was a very light outline that looked like the interior was a distortion. That is what caught my eye. I had to go to another room and answer the phone. When I came back, it was gone, or I could not see it anymore. I have no idea what it was. It was weird. Maybe just some things were in the right position and me in the right position. Who knows? It was weird, and even weirder to know that others have had the same experience. I can say this apparition and the light breeze blowing that day with no sound was an eerie feeling. I don't talk about it because I can't explain it, and as I mentioned, I need proof and don't accept everything heard or seen. There aren't many times explanations, but I will say this as the ghost in the Christmas Carol told old Scrooge, "Do you not trust your own senses?" A comment from a fictional story, but a legitimate question to ask. Take care, Sammy Henson. It moved with purpose and intelligence. I've been listening to your channel for a while now, trying to find answers and understand an experience I had about 6 months ago, just outside of my hometown in a pretty large forested area here in Ireland. I guess I'll dive right into what happened and not bore you with unimportant details. I was hiking on a trail I'm very familiar with, and because I thought it was going to last rain, I decided to leave the trail and cut through the woods. I wanted to try and get to my car before downpour, and I knew this area like the back of my hand, or at least I should have, and believed I did. Before I knew it, I felt very strange, disoriented, and nothing looked familiar. I'm not sure if the woods seemed silent before or after I felt this way, but I became undeniably aware of how silent and eerie everything was. Oppressingly, downright suffocating silence, and my heart began to pound as I stood in place, and it felt as if the woods were spinning and closing in around me, like I'd stepped into something I could not comprehend. It was then I noticed something about 15 feet in front of me. It was 10 feet high and about 8 feet wide and distorted. It was like something was bending the light and moving towards me like a fogged-up mirror almost, but with no definitive shape. But it was moving with purpose and intelligence and would be completely invisible if not for the distortion within and me looking directly at it. I turned to run and realized another one was behind me, same size and shapeless almost. It was then I realized there were at least 4 of these things closing in on me, and I was trapped and almost paralyzed with fear. What I was seeing, my brain could not make sense of, and I was in utter panic and shock and backed up against a tree because I was terrified to run in the direction of these things. I curled up in a fetal position and put my hands over my ears because they'd begun ringing, and the sound was deafening. So I closed my eyes as these intelligent, bizarre things were all around me, about 5 feet exactly. I saw a white flash, like what happens if you're ever hit hard in the head or fell or punched. That's the best I can describe it. My ears are ringing, and then the flash, and then nothing. I woke up to rain falling on me, and hours had passed. I realized this after checking my watch. Everything was normal now, and I knew where I was. I gathered myself, checked for injuries, and realized I was completely fine, and shakingly, I left the woods and drove home. I felt weak and a little clumsy on my feet, but I was okay. I can't make sense of what happened. I've Googled similar events, but found nothing quite like what happened to me, and I really need answers. I stumbled across stealth cloaking technologies used by the military while trying to find answers, and the technology is primitive compared to what I witnessed. What these beings or things were, I just don't know. I don't have answers, and I don't know what happened to me or why. If anyone has experienced anything similar, please share with me, and I'd love to hear anyone's opinions or theories. I grew up in this area and jogged there a few times a week for the past few years, but I haven't gone back since the incident. I have no health issues, and I attended my doctors after the incident to rule out anything sinister with my health, but everything health-wise is fine. One thing that did stand out was the ringing sound that pierced through the silence of the forest right before these beings appeared, and it felt like my brain was actually sizzling in my skull. That and the smell of sulfur or something metallic actually frightened me to the point I thought my brain was bleeding or about to explode. I have no explanation for what happened, and I know in my heart what I saw was truly bizarre and not normal. They moved with purpose and intelligence, and I felt completely at their mercy while they surrounded me in that woodland. I lost almost 4 hours and have no memory of what happened during that time, as if I just passed out or something more sinister occurred. I'm starting to accept I might never have answers, and I'm trying to move on with my life, but it really shook me and my belief system upside down, and I view the world very differently ever since it happened. Your friend, Darren. Have you ever seen an invisible man? A longtime friend of mine, very traditional, totally straight when it came to substances, stopped by my place of business one day and asked me, "Have you ever seen an invisible man?" I gave her the look she expected, and she said, "No, I'm serious." She'd been walking the shore at Potawatomi, Rhode Island, and suddenly she saw a human form, or outline, maybe 30 yards away. It was bent down looking at something in the water. As she stepped closer, he suddenly stood up. From his profile, she could tell he was looking at her. This unnerved her, so she turned around and casually walked away without looking back, perhaps to make him wonder if she had seen him after all. This happened about 10 years after the first Predator movie, but I'm pretty sure this woman had not even seen it. The print ad for it would have kept her away. I told her there was a movie about invisible beings and that a common acquaintance in town had also had experience with one. I kept my eyes open after that. The woman was utterly reliable. If she saw it, it was there. Sincerely, Al Fontana. Well, friends, that's it for Volume 3. Let us know what you think about these stories in the comments below, but please be respectful of the opinions of others. And if you have any strange stories you would like to see featured in an upcoming video, email them to nationalparkmysteriesyt@gmail.com. We're very interested in stories that detail encounters with ghosts, humanoids, cryptids, or any type of other unknown entity that is beyond explanation. Thanks again for listening, and please be sure to give us a like on the video and to share and subscribe for more strange stories. Meanwhile, be good to yourselves and each other. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'll talk to you next time.